Hi folks, welcome to my 8-Bit Retro Journal. This is my first video of 2021, and today I'm going to focus again on the QL. First off, I had fun in December doing Dissecting videos, and I actually reached a milestone which I was really happy with. So I've reached 256 subscribers, which is 8 bits, appropriate for 8-Bit Retro Journal. Next is 512 subscribers in 2021. So yeah, appreciate all the subscribers to my channel that have appreciated my content. I don't usually ask for subscribers, but I'm happy when you do subscribe to it. I certainly am not going to create any Patreon page or anything like that. I don't really want to make a profit on this channel. There's plenty of YouTubers out there that are doing this for a living, so support them financially if you can, but come watch my videos. Usually I struggle with naming my videos, but this time I actually had a name before I knew exactly what everything I was gonna do. This was really more about miniaturization, but I like the title Planes, Trains, and Microdrives, and so you can see on my screen here I've got what is supposed to be a flying QL. I was watching Adrian's Digital Basement, and he was doing an unboxing video, mail call video, and in the background he had After Dark's flying toasters for the Mac running. I had actually prototyped this on the QL in BASIC back in the 90s. I'd forgotten that I had it, so I grabbed it and loaded it up, and I'm running it. It's running pretty slow, but if I actually ever compiled it, it should actually hopefully have more of an animation feel to it. But anyway, those are my planes. So really what I want to talk today about is really miniaturization. The microdrives are sort of a very unique element of the QL that most other computers don't have. It's an integral part of it. It's part of the case of the QL. It has two built-in microdrives, and they're these mechanical miniaturized tape drives, right? And so I'm actually going to take this apart today, and we'll take a look at what this looks like inside. Why do I have these trains in here? Well, this is another hobby of mine. I like model railroading. I haven't really indulged in it as much as I sometimes want to. So this was a train I had as a kid, back in probably the same time I got this. And I got this later on, probably more as an adult. And then as the last 5 or 6 years or so, I decided that I really wanted to get back into model railroading, but didn't have enough room for HO, so I went with N scale. And when you're an adult, you can just sort of spend money on eBay, and I tried to get. I guess I must have gotten a good deal on this because it's not the same color as that. I really like this yellow and red, but kind of got almost the same trains that I had. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we like miniaturizations in various things, and model railroading certainly has a big fan base, and it's sort of making small workable mechanical things is kind of cool, and so by that same token, as will make these microdrives cool. By the way, before I leave the train set, one other thing I actually am interested in doing in the future is sort of combining my hobby of retro computing with my train hobby, and I have this thing that I bought off of eBay. This is it's an X10 control module. It has what looks like a phone jack, but it's actually a serial port. Let me see if I can place this down here so we can have it. Yeah. It's actually a serial port, and so this device you plug into your outlet, and then you can control your X10 modules, which I have a few of. Here's one of them. And these generally you can turn on and off, and so perhaps I could use. I want to play with this just to be able to control my house with my QL. This is just, I think there's 300 baud serial connection, and then send signals to these units which have a house and a number code to turn them on or off, and you can even dim them. And so as far as trains are concerned, I could have different tracks with trains starting and stopping, having the QL control that. Perhaps even creating relays that could have switches closing and opening. Certainly it's been done before, and I'm sure there's other serial controlled devices that one could find. If you know of them, I haven't researched this, I just thought about this as I was doing this video. Just post it in the comments on this video, because I'm interested in doing that. But this, I definitely want to play with this, because I specifically bought this because it actually had an RS-232 serial interface. I had this for this other unit here I've had forever, which is it's called a firecracker, which also has a USB port, and it comes with this transceiver module. Let's see if you can actually see it. So the firecracker comes with the transceiver module. So this sends a wireless signal to that. So it's very similar to the thing below, but the difference is that this is wireless. However, unfortunately, this is not RS-232. It really just takes two pins, the DTR and the RTS, and it literally just it's almost like smoke signals. It sends it packs it's called bit packing, I think. So it pushes through 40 bits one at a time, and maybe it's cheaper than RS-232 to implement, but so the QL unfortunately can't control its DTR and CTS signals that independently, and so I could probably hook something up where I use both serial ports on the QL to use the send mechanism, but you also have to have critical timing. So I don't think I can get the firecracker to work, but I can get this to work, because this is like, I think, 300 baud or maybe it's 1200 baud, but I think it's 300 baud RS-232. So I just have to figure out what the protocol is, and then I can actually create a program, either in BASIC or probably in C, where I can then control this thing, and then I can control these things. I have a bunch of those, and I might even then tie it to my train set. All right. So that, by the way, this wireless module, which has a firecracker, can actually be controlled by this thing as well, which is just a remote. And I have a bigger remote that actually has all the numbers that are on this thing. So so the X10 stuff is pretty robust and comes. So this is just a nice little keychain one that can turn on and off two things. But I couldn't locate my actual control module that has all the 16 has 16 values, and you can set the home codes as well. So you can, with that remote, you can control anything through this transceiver. And so these things tend to break. If you've noticed, I actually had to cheap plastic. I actually had to put a hole through there and nuts and bolts to get it to hook together. In any case, I just bought this one on eBay, and so plan is to play with this one eventually. So let me remove some of that stuff, since I'm not going to be working on my train set, but I wanted to focus today on the cartridges, micro cartridges, because they are unique to the QL, and no more train sets, but I'll probably revisit these when I have some time. In terms of controlling these with a computer, with the QL actually, and I don't need these either. So let's get rid of all that stuff and make some room for my other stuff. And so yeah, so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about microdrives, which back in the day when the QL came out, and also when I had it in the late 80s, early 90s. Man, I would have given anything to have a floppy drive in that, because as long as they could have put one in, maybe facing in this direction, right? So maybe going in this direction. So it didn't have to make the QL any bigger because I like its form factor. But yeah, it would have been nice because even though microdrives were somewhat reliable, they, when they failed, they definitely failed more often than discs, and they were slow. But when they failed, it was terrible because you could sit there waiting for a minute, and then you realize that it wasn't going to load. I'd said in the past that it would have been nicer if the QDOS operating system had done a little better job, maybe doing sector recoveries after a couple of fails, but it would just sit there, insanity, just repeating over and over again, trying to read those bad sectors. But in 2021, this is actually now kind of a feature. So when you hear people give reviews of QLs, you generally find that there are folks that use them rarely, were disappointed in them back in the early 90s and sort of gave up on them. But for us that are sticking with this now, these microdrives have actually become kind of an interesting element. Even back in the 90s, I was intrigued by this because I was like miniaturization and the fact that this has literally a miniature mechanical tape drive and they're integral to the QL. In other words, they're not accessories, they're part of it. Always intrigued me back then, and it intrigues me even more now because it's kind of cool that this technology still works and the fact that they made it work. And in fact, in 2021, these things are kind of boring, right? They're just they're floppies, dime a dozen, right? In fact, the outdated technology that we don't get as excited about, and if you have an Atari ST or an Amiga 500, 600, 1200 that has a floppy actually built in, you tend to look at that more as, oh, maybe I'll replace it with a GoTech because I don't really need a floppy unless there's some software that requires it, maybe write protection, or in the case of running emulators, sometimes you need to have the disk to put a different format of a disk in, like DOS format. But still, they don't really inspire sort of nostalgia as much as, for me, these things do. And so, so as a retro thing, it's actually now, what was kind of a negative is now sort of a bonus. And so these are kind of cool. So what I wanted to do today, briefly, so this is going to be not too long a video, is I wanted to show you the insides of this and actually compare it to 8-track, which is what it was designed for after, right? So I have my, this is my Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon 8-track, and it's actually not my 8-track. I mean, somebody gave this to me a few years ago, and I'm like, oh cool, I actually have the CD for this, but so people used to jam this into their cars as an 8-track, and I don't have an 8-track player, so this is kind of, I think it's kind of a cool format, but this is what this was based on, and so I wanted to take them apart. Now I'm not going to ruin a perfectly good, I assume I've never played it, Pink Floyd, and I'm not going to ruin a perfectly good microdrive, and so I'm going to set these to the side, but I have a blank one. And maybe what I'll do is I kind of set this up so that you could see my QL dark screensaver, but I think I can actually move this now a little closer to so you can see this better. So let me rearrange the camera. All right, so I've got a few things. Oh, there's one more element that I forgot to grab, which is my toilet paper roll of actual, so this is what the size of the actual tape that is inside of the QL. QL's microdrives, right? So now it turns out that they were supposed to have been, do I have one to look at? Yep. So VHS tape, and the quality of the I have all the old technologies. The quality of, and I think you can just press it here. Yeah, be very careful. So the quality of the actual tape on the microdrives was supposed to be video quality tapes. And I've always wondered if, because the one thing that wears out is the tape, not the actual plastic. If can you somehow slice these thinly, uniformly? Can you create a rig so you could actually reuse like a high quality videotape and just create a whole bunch of new microdrives? So I know there's been discussions on the QL forum about that, but so maybe an interesting future project. Let me pack this back up. And of course, speaking of a couple other miniaturizations, oopsie, let me grab that. I have this, which is obviously a cassette drive, and then I also have, I might have to move the camera a little bit. So I also have, speaking of miniaturizations, I've got one of these, mini tape recorders. So this is not for audio. This is, I remember how you open this up. Does it just flip open? Oh yeah. So it just flips open, and this plays these mini tape drives, which is pretty cool. So it turns out that these, unfortunately, are, you can see this is much thicker in terms of tape thickness as what the QL uses. So much thinner, much smaller, but still, some cool old technologies. A miniature tape drive with that recorder, and then of course you have the larger tapes. But 8 tracks is what these were modeled after, and so I got a couple of these that I opened a long time ago, not because I like breaking things, but because the tape was jammed or it went broken, was in there, so I had to open it up. Generally, when you open these up, the way you open these, end up opening these up, is that you can't take this off, and so you end up actually, you can see that this is kind of broken here, and so that's one of the best you can hope for. And so when I open this up, it's got a little tab here. I don't want to break that. Yeah. Gotta wiggle it. There we go. Yeah, so it was stuck on that little tab. But here we are. So you got your main wheel, and then your 2 catching wheels, and there's supposed to be a copper spring in there. It's just a little copper plate with a felt in there that I currently don't have. If you look at a good one, you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. So it has a little, it's a little copper piece that sort of flexes, and then it has some felt on top of it. So whenever you hear QL is talking about refelting their QL microdrive, that's what they're doing, just like any other tape drive. But anyway, so the main, can we zoom in on that as well? Yeah. So it has the main spool, and then it has the 2 spoolers at the top. And more importantly, we don't want to lose that. It has, if you look at this, you can see that how the right there's a little bit of a cutout, and that's sort of trying to get the tape to go in a certain way. And if you kind of rotate it in the proper way, you can see that there's also a little piece right here, and it's basically trying to get the tape to go from this to this and then back to that, because it kind of has to flatten out a little bit. So that's kind of how most of the tapes end up sort of being taken apart. I did get lucky on this one though, so this is another one that came apart quite nicely. So this one came apart. Again, let me zoom in on that. I can actually take this part here off, and that, unfortunately, on most of them, they've glued it on so tight that it's really hard to take them off this way. This is the perfect way of taking it off. Now, you could maybe imagine, well, we'll put a heat gun to it, or maybe soak it in something that'll loosen the glue. The problem is, if you're trying to save the tape, that's not a good way to do it, because then you could ruin the tape. Now, if the tape is bad and you want to somehow figure out a way to create a new tape, yeah, then you could do that. But unfortunately, the way they manufacture that was not ideal. So anyway, so this was one of the ones that luckily came apart in a way that was useful. And so this one then also opens up. And very similarly, the two parts. I may at one point wind this tape back on it. That'll be a project, but I'm not doing that today because I think it'd be very frustrating. But in my show and tell of these awesome little tape drives, I took this one apart, and you can kind of see, get a better picture of actually how this works, because this is a very similar mechanism. So let's see if it did snap itself back in. That was a problem. All right, let me apply a little bit of pressure here. So yeah. So yeah, I broke another one, little tab. So these things sort of snap in there. You can see this tab had a little piece of plastic right here. This is not ever supposed to be put back together. I've already broken that one and that one. So one other one isn't really going to bother me too much, but you can see that the infrastructure in here is to sort of guide the tape as well to those two rollers. And then let's look at the actual thing with the tape mechanism. And here's where we'll see some similarities to the so you can see right here that piece of plastic that slants it in that direction back here is very similar to the way the QL does its. If we look at this guy right here, right, so sort of that. Do I have something to point with? Sorry. So this angle right here sort of accomplishes the same thing. So you see it has this grooved area, and then so the tape comes out of here and then slowly gets bent from well, it tries not to bend it at a completely 90-degree right angle, so it's trying to get it at 45 degrees so that it can come out flat and then come back in its normal position. And you can get a better picture of what's going on with this, right? Because that's exactly what's happening here. Oops, let me shrink this. So as this roller tightens, so as this feeds the tape, it comes out of here and feeds into here. What's really interesting is that so you're looking at this going, oh, so this is basically adding something to the outer loop, right? And so you would imagine, well, that means this thing's going to keep getting bigger and bigger, but somehow this thing adjusts itself and just keeps shrinking and staying at the same size because it's pulling tape from the inside. But so this whole thing, even though it's tightly packed, ends up collapsing. So that's the interesting part. That I'm trying to figure out the physics of that. If I'm adding more to the outside, you'd think the outside keeps getting bigger, but yet it reduces because you're taking from the inside, but this thing ends up collapsing. So there's got to be a little bit of, but you know, if I press on this, it doesn't move. So it's kind of interesting that someone figured out that if you do this, this will stay a constant. This outer loop will stay a constant size, and And then of course you have, I don't really want to, so you have this thing in here, this piece of, this little metal, plastic washer. I don't know if I can do anything with that. Just wanted to get under it to see what, it's sort of, what it's doing is it's sort of separating. What I want to see is, there we go. Here, that's what I want. So what is this washer doing? Well, it's not doing much of anything because, so this is pretty tightly wound to this. Yeah, interesting. So I'm not sure if this washer just sort of adds a little bit of making this mechanism work better or not. But the QL's microdrives work on the same principle, so it's interesting that these things actually work, and the microdrives actually work at a much higher speed than the 8-track tapes. In any case, that's a miniaturized version of an 8-track tape is how the microdrive actually does its job, and it's pretty cool to think about that. This was basically based off of an 8-track tape and kind of works. So like I said, the tape goes in here. So I think if you look at the spool has sort of itself, it kind of has a groove inside of there that gives it some space. And I think it's hard to see that here, but I think the same thing is going on that this actually kind of grooves inwards, and so that must give it some wiggle room for the tape to have a little bit of motion to be free. But again, the fact that this thing kind of stays small is kind of impressive, I think, in terms of that it works that way. So anyway, that's how an 8-track tape works, and that's how the microdrives work, and that's really all I wanted to share with you today, is just sort of my intrigue about the miniaturization of these 8-track tapes. Right there. And the one difference is, well, no, the top is here. So the top, so in both cases, the thing feeds from this side. So the one difference is the microdrives go in this direction and the 8-track goes in the opposite direction. But other than that, they're pretty close. Yep. So I just wanted to share that with you. Take one apart and kind of show you how these things work. So not too much going on today, but it's the first. It's in the new year, so I have some cool videos coming up. Some other things that I have that I'm going to interface with the QL besides what I showed you today. And like I said, eventually I might do more. With the Dissecting videos, I got a lot of people watching my other videos and got good feedback on my multitasking in the 80s. So I might do more with that. Maybe look at old Linux kernels and see how they ran. Maybe look at some other multitasking OSs in the 80s, like I saw Concurrent DOS as one, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. So I'll look at those as well, maybe. Anyways, have a happy and healthy 2021, and I hope you still stay safe. Thanks.